Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Hello, no matter where you are and no matter when you are. Hi. It's so good to see you and be with you wherever you are. Just you and me hanging out, my voice and your ears. Hi, my name is Jeffrey, and this is the Jeffrey Breedwell audiocast. That's the one you selected. So, yeah, cool. This episode, this episode's gonna get pretty real. I'm not even gonna lie about that. It's gonna get pretty real. Yeah, I'm not even gonna lie. I cried a little bit when I read it. You did? Yeah. I mean, it was sad, but also at the same time, like, I understand where you were coming from with this one. Oh, well, that's good. Oh, yeah. I definitely understood where you were coming from, and I appreciate the help that you gave at the end. Well, that's nice, Mickey. I'm glad that you appreciated that. I'm glad for you. That's great. I'm really glad. Hopefully, you as a listener will be able to enjoy this as well, because in all honesty, I had no idea what I was going to write this week. I had no idea what the episode was going to be about. I mean, I had options. I had a plan. Well, I had a concept of a plan, but the whole thing about what I was going to do, I don't know. So that ended up becoming something else entirely. And I'll get into it without any further ado. We'll just go ahead and get into it right now. It's going to be When Great Writing Goes Wrong. By the way, this is a disclaimer. This post discusses mental health openly and discusses a kind of therapy. Please discuss if this therapy is right for you with your doctor. Listener discretion is advised. This week, I was prompted to scroll more on Substack. They said to grow on the Substack app, you have to interact with it. You have to like, comment, and repost, just like every other social media app since Friendster. This week, I read an article that not only took my breath away, but it also gave me an example of what success on Substack looks like. That crushed me. I thought I was doing well. I thought the subscribers, listeners, and readers were awesome, and you are. But when I saw theirs, my mind flashed back to elementary school. I walked in a line in the big kids' hallway on our way to a hearing test. Inside this baby blue hallway with a solid navy blue trim lying along the walls, there were metal lines attached and filled with cork. On these hung the artwork from the 6th graders, who created pictures based on a book they had finished reading. The picture I saw was an architectural masterpiece. It would fit in next to the masterpieces in art museums that were terribly boring to my young mind. This picture, I think it was of a house in a yard or something, was delicate in its pencil work. The shading was perfect. It was drawn by Da Vinci himself. And when I got back to class, I tried similar ideas, and nothing I could do. And nothing I did could come close to that original work. The student will never know what their art did for my little brain, nor will the journalist ever know that their writing took me back there. Well, most likely. With what I can only imagine is an incredibly busy life, that journalist won't have time to listen to this. And that's fine. I don't need her to. Have you ever felt this way? They say that comparison is the thief of joy, but that's just a platitude for the way it feels when you're in it. I can't stand this feeling, and I can only imagine that in your life it's been something similar. Maybe it was drawing, or fashion, or even another person driving your dream car. Maybe it was like me, and you read something that blew your mind into another realm altogether? And if so, we're together in this. This post is sponsored by Comparison. Comparison, giving you an inferiority complex since 1241. Now with AI. Wait, can you say that word again? Inferiority. What? Inferiority complex. There you go. This Substack is also reader-supported. To receive new posts and support the work, please consider becoming a free or paid subscriber and buy a shirt. And now, back to the audiocast. To say that comparison is a bad thing would be missing the point. It's not, nor the feelings we have when we face rejection, whether self-induced or otherwise. Comparison is innate in humanity. It's natural in animals. It's a part of who we are. And naturally, we have used comparison not only to protect our health, but also our families, our friends, and even the hunting parties. On ancient Earth, our ancestors used comparison to decide if the crops were done. They compared which animal would be easier to kill and whether or not the meat was cooked. Everything from the sharpness of the tools to the stitching of the furs across their bodies was compared. According to the revolutionary psychologist who proposed cognitive dissonance theory, Leon Festinger, comparison leads to pressure for uniformity, but that pressure will stop if the comparison is too different. He called this the social comparison theory. Festinger told us that there are two things we can learn from comparing ourselves to others: what we are able to do and what opinions are right or wrong, both of which usually increase confidence in the observer. That's us. Applying this to my situation, it'd easily be the first notion, as the opinions in the article were focused on the story itself and leading towards the center. So, then, I should read that article and be inspired. I should read that article and think, I can do that. That's something for me to accomplish one day. But that's not how I feel. To me, it's a rejection of what I shouldn't do. It's discouragement to know what I could never accomplish. I go through similar feelings when I skateboard. I'm 40, and I go to skate parks regularly to skateboard on my lunch breaks. I take moments from my day to fly and carve the ramps. When I was a teenager, and I'd see older people do tricks I couldn't do, I knew I could do them one day. After 3 decades and a fractured skull, I've given up on making it as a pro skateboarder, doing a vert competition and landing a 900. So if I can watch other skaters do amazing tricks I can't do, and that doesn't affect me the same way this article does, then why does this hit me like a ton of bricks? I can watch a blind skateboarder do better tricks or watch a 5-year-old skate better, but I can't handle a newsworthy article from an award-winning journalist? Why is this so hard? Am I an imposter? Underlying conditions. Last year, I was diagnosed with autism. I was elated, as it explained a lot about my past and present. In 4th grade, I was diagnosed with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and given Ritalin. I know, it was terrible. Now, with the combined power of autism and ADHD, I have AuDHD! My brain constantly battles itself between comfort and expansion. My body doesn't work athletically the way it should, despite all the practice I had in my youth. With AuDHD, the differences that I have in my brain are something that plague me constantly, despite the commonality of spending each day with neurotypicals. According to Psychology Today from 2021, ASD, or Autism Spectrum Disorder, and ADHD are 2 household names, but only 4.4% of the population has been diagnosed with ADHD, while only 2.2% are diagnosed with ASD. The overlap in symptoms happens 50 to 80% of the time for patients with ASD having ADHD symptoms too, while out of 100 children with ADHD, only 20 to 30 of them will have ASD symptoms too. AuDHD shows up as emotional hangovers, pattern recognition, struggling with small talk, rejection sensitivity, intuitive, can feel things that others can't, burnout cycles, feeling too much or not enough, exhaustion masked as, I'm fine, comfort objects or rituals, hyperfocus and chronic distraction, decision fatigue, emotional intensity, delayed processing, feel misunderstood often, task paralysis, forgetting the basics but remembering details, forgetting hunger and thirst or not stopping, time blindness, craving routine and resisting routine, being praised for strong justice sensitivity, masking automatically, shutdowns after stimulation, intense interests that rotate, needing clear rules, over-explaining and then withdrawing, difficulty starting and then difficulty stopping, sensory overload and sensory seeking, having a strong inner critic. All of those are a part of the AuDHD life. Your experience may vary. That being said, being diagnosed with both must mean I get twice the fun, right? Well, sorta. My focus level is intense. I lose track of time, like most of us. I fail to recognize social cues, even after getting a master's degree. My thought process is methodic, strict yet creative, expansive and impulsive. This is part of the reason why writing is so fun for me, and why having AuDHD fits perfectly with the plot of Just Put the VHS in the Bag, Bro, due out June 25th, 2026. Writing allows me to effortlessly float between the preparation and the creative expanse. And comparing myself to another in writing, it was unintentional, and because of my thought process, I could cite every reason for it. I noticed every detail, every clue, every hint of why they were a better writer than I. To me, it was clear as day, but to every other neurotypical, it's apples and oranges. But then why am I upset? According to Sarah Bentz on verywellhealth.com, people with ADHD can also experience symptoms of a specific disorder, RSD, rejection sensitive dysphoria, which is also a trait of autism. Score 1 for AuDHD. It's not limited to people with ADHD, or ASD. This is a trait within bipolar disorder, body dysmorphic disorder, depression, personality disorders, post-traumatic stress disorders, and social anxiety. Further study is needed to determine whether RSD is a symptom or if it's something else entirely. Bentz breaks down RSD like this. People with RSD experience an overwhelming, instantaneous, negative emotional reaction to even mild forms of rejection. Criticisms that other people might brush off or feel sad about for a shorter period of time feel catastrophic to a person with RSD. People with RSD are also prone to receiving rejection when there hasn't been any, furthering their dysphoria. There is a medicine for RSD, as well as the social coping skills and treatment and therapy, such as CBT or cognitive-based therapy, that can help RSD. But for me, I already have CBT and medication, although it's none of the three listed on the Verywell Health website. Regardless of how many therapy sessions or medications, rejection still sucks. When there is no rejection, but I only think there is, it's worse. Am I imagining things? Did I make up a rejection because I'm feeling some kind of way? Heaven forbid I feel a little fakakta in my cop. Great. Am I getting verklempt? I'm getting verklempt. Hold on, getting verklempt. I'm going to give you a topic. Colonial times were neither about colons nor on time. Discuss. There. Now I feel better. Okay, moving on. What are we to do when we feel this rejection-based comparison? Are we to move on with our day, our week, and our lives if we keep feeling these comparisons where we feel slighted? There is the CBT training we can use. If you've never done CBT or heard of it, a quick handout is in the show notes from the American Psychiatric Association that goes over it. CBT is always better away from the situation rather than in the heat of the moment, and that's on purpose. CBT requires writing or identifying the situation, the feeling, the thought, the evaluation, and then finally a decision. For those who have difficulty making decisions, I promise it's not nearly as scary as you think. Let's go through it, shall we? Step 1. The situation. If this brings up the thought of the guy from Jersey Shore, then you might want to either schedule a mammogram or a prostate exam. Also, same thing goes if you know where my whole discuss joke was from. Now, while we might not always be aware of the situation we find ourselves in, it helps to take an objective look at where we are. For now, we can write one sentence that describes the situation. For example, I read an incredibly well-written article. Step 2. The feeling. How did this situation make you feel? Which emotions did you or do you feel during this situation? Focus on the strongest feeling and name it. It is easier to focus on the 4 broad feelings: fear and anxiety, sadness or depression, guilt and shame, or anger. For our example, the feeling I felt the most was sadness and depression. If there's more than one, then we'll go through one for each feeling. With this situation, however, the feelings of guilt and shame are secondary, so we'll focus on just the primary feelings for now. Step 3. The thought. This is where we identify our thoughts that give life to our feelings. If you're unsure about this, ask yourself the following questions based on what you're feeling. This is straight from the handout, by the way. If you're feeling fear and anxiety, what bad thing do I expect to happen? What kind of danger am I in? If you're feeling sadness or depression, what have I lost hope in? Or what is missing in my life or in me? Guilt or shame, what bad thing have I done? What is wrong with me? Anger, what is unfair about this situation? Who has wronged me? In this example, I'd be asking the sadness and depression questions. I've lost hope in being good enough to be followed. What's missing is the approval of my work from random people on the internet. Despite how sad and lonely that statement may seem, it's important to allow yourself to feel without judgment in these moments. Step 4. Evaluate. How accurate is your thought? Not how lonely, not how silly, not how crazy. How accurate is your thought? The only way to determine if something is accurate is to back it up with evidence. If you cannot back it up with evidence, then you can determine that the thought is inaccurate. Here are some questions that might help find more evidence. What's another way we can look at the situation? Is there an alternative situation to what happened? How might an outsider view this situation? Am I more concerned with how I feel or the actual facts? Am I setting unrealistic, unattainable standards for myself that I would never expect anyone else to meet? Am I overestimating how much control and responsibility I have? What is the worst thing that could happen if my fear were true? Am I not considering everything I can do to deal with this problem? Am I thinking these things because a rare event happened to me and is very likely to happen again? For our example, here is the evidence for my writing could be more compelling or have more divisive topics. I could spend a bunch of time on social media to interact with every post. And for example, here's the evidence against. Good writing comes from many years of work. I'm depressed because I'm not successful as quickly as I had hoped. I started my Substack less than a year ago. And I cannot control people, regardless of how much I interact on this app or social media. Step 5. Make a decision. Make a decision. This is the hard part, isn't it? Making decisions is a part of the reason why I created moral mechanics. However, using that here would only work by finding which has more evidence, either for or against. The APA worksheet says this. When trying to be objective, you can think of yourself like a scientist who is evaluating the evidence supporting the effectiveness of a new treatment and is primarily interested in the objective facts. Or you can think of yourself like a lawyer presenting the evidence for or against a case to an impartial jury based on the facts. After you decide what is best supported, the action follows. If we think the evidence supports it, then we continue. If we think it is not supported, we come up with a new thought associated with a reduction in stress compared to the original. In our example, we can tell that the evidence does not support the original thought. Then we can come up with a new thought. Perhaps something like, although I feel sad and depressed, it is likely the person has experience and education that I do not. Or even though I am sad, I am just getting started. The story is not over yet. CBT conclusion. Based on the evidence and the exercise, a course of action takes place. From here, if the evidence supports the dark thoughts, we could develop an action plan to improve things. Since the evidence does not support the initial thought, we have an action plan to make sure we change our thinking and move forward from there. Cognitive-based therapy is a wonderful tool to help identify and correct our thinking, and to base it on facts rather than on incorrect emotions we feel. This is not to say that all of our emotions are wrong. They're not. CBT gives us the tools to evaluate whether or not these thoughts are worth spending time on, or rather, they're worth letting things go. Ironically, the comparison ends up to being the thing that would steal our joy. But in reality, it is worth comparing things to evaluate their objective truth. It was through comparison that the joy was not stolen. Instead, the joy was restored, and hope was given in the final step. Hope is the medication for depression. Joy is what we need daily to inspire ourselves and others. By evaluating the depressed thoughts I had against an objective set of facts, I was able to determine their inaccuracy. I could then reframe the thought. I acknowledged how I was feeling and gave an objective to something I couldn't see in the moment. As it is, my story is just getting started. And if you're listening to this, your story is full of hope too. Your story isn't over. Just like me, we can objectify our thoughts instead of ourselves and evaluate them against facts. If they hold up, then cool. If they don't, that's cool too. We can rewrite them. We can always rewrite our thoughts while our brain still functions. You are worth the reevaluation. You are worth the time it takes to do these steps. You are worth the effort. You are an amazing person, and my dog, my cats, and I love you. With all my heart, Jeffrey Breedwell. P.S. The article I freaked out over is in the show notes. It's called Why the Did Dan Rather and Donald Rumsfeld Buy a New Mexico Ranch Together in 1981 by Alisa Valdez Rodriguez. PPS. Buy a shirt. Other people have bought the shirt. In fact, you can also see on the social media that this wonderful person named Matt took a picture of him standing with the shirt. And you can stand up, stand out, and stand for yourself. Each shirt is made for you and shipped free. You can find it at jeffreybreedwell.com. That's GEOFFREY, and then breedwell, just like I would breedwell.com. And that's it. That's the post. That's the blog. That's all I wrote, my friends. And it's absolutely true. All of this is absolutely true. I compared myself to the article and the article that I freaked out over. And it had nothing to do about Dan Rather and Donald Rumsfeld and Epstein, which are all in the article, by the way. It had more to do with how amazing Miss Valdez Rodriguez's writing is. And whether she listens to this or reads the post or not, that's cool. But it's that moment of where, when I compared myself and compared where I was, for some reason I felt that rejection. And because I felt that rejection, it wasn't a good thing to do that. But by holding myself up to the CBT and holding my thoughts objectively to the facts, we were able to rewrite the stuff, you and I. Maybe there's something going on in your life where you've had past trauma or you've gone through that. If you don't feel like you want to go through CBT by yourself, because it is really hard, especially when you're getting into traumatic areas, like with post-traumatic stress disorder. I have that, and it sucks. Holy crap, it sucks. But if you're going through therapy and you want to start CBT, talk to your therapist, talk to your psychologist, talk to your psychiatrist about going through CBT and using CBT as a way to help your progress and help cope with the thoughts that come. Because the more that you do the CBT, the more that you go within that process, the quicker it becomes a habit in your mind, and then you're able to rewire your brain. So your trauma, your pain can be objectified easier. And those moments, those flashes, those moods can take place over a shorter period of time instead of taking months or years. And then you can see that sine wave of upness and downness shrink. Again, talk to your therapist about this. Talk to your psychiatrist, psychologist. Talk to your doctor. Side effects do include enjoying the Jeffrey Breedwell audiocast, constipation, and taking way too long in the bathroom because you're on your phone. So there's that. But that all being said, my friends, I will see you next week for yet another topic and another blog for this episode. I love you, my dog, and my 3 cats. We all love you too. I'll catch you next time.